And welcome to another Doing Business in webinar. How exciting is this today? Fabulous that everybody is joining us. I know there's still people joining the webinar as I'm speaking now, so we'll just give it another 30 seconds or so before we really get going. My name is Ryan McKnight, and I am joined by a whole host of fabulous people today, and I'm sure it's going to be a really interesting session, with this month's theme being Doing Business in Brazil. Tony Sharkey, founder of the Football Transfer Forum. We've been looking forward to this one for a while, haven't we, Tony? First of all, how are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, Ryan. You're right. I'm so excited. What I did last night was, in a warm-up for this webinar, I watched Pele, the new documentary on Netflix, just to get myself in the mood for the Doing Business in Brazil. We had a great prep early in the week with Marcus. He's live in Rio, I believe. So, I've been really looking forward to this for ages.
Fantastic. And of course, you mentioned the main man. We're obviously really honoured to have Marcus Motta with us today. Marcus, we're going to give you a proper introduction very shortly. But how are you? And thanks for being with us.
Hey, Tony, Ryan, Roberto, good to see you all. I'm doing great, thank you. Actually, I'm talking now from São Paulo, not Rio. Tomorrow morning, flying to Rio. So lucky me, I can say that, because I think tomorrow is going to be around 35 degrees. So thank you so much for the kind invitation. It's a privilege for me. Thank you.
It's absolutely no problem. As always, a bit of housekeeping. If you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A box. And if you've got any general comments, put them in the chat. Ali from the European Football Agents Association is here as well. Right on cue there, Ali, with your little note in the chat as well, which is absolutely fantastic. We're also joined again by Roberto Branco Martins from the European Football Agents Association, and we're going to be hearing from Roberto very shortly. So let me quickly just share with you what we are going to go through over the next 90 minutes. So we have really devoted a lot of time to spend with Marcos this morning. As Tony alluded to in the prep session that we had earlier on this week, there was so much great information there. And so really having this time with Marcos, really do want to make the absolute most of it. As always, we're going to have a slight interlude in the middle, and we're going to be hearing from our partners, Player Lens, their MD, Ramon, will hopefully be here on time around 3:15 UK time. Now, it's a bit of a somber day here in the UK because our cricket team has just been absolutely humiliated by India this morning. So we're always trying to think of fonder times, Tony, aren't we, when things like that happen? And I wanted to dig a little image out. And Marcus, you'll appreciate, and I feel like I've got some authenticity about.
There we go. We have a Carioca guy here with us.
So a few years ago, that's me sort of adoring Copacabana Beach, and
amazing.
And guys, like we spoke about, I had an unbelievable experience of joining some of the young players who come down from the favelas on the night to play on the beach, and genuinely some of the best players that I have ever played with. So this was pre-children, so I'm looking much more less stressed. But I wanted to share that image, because what a
that's great. Amazing.
But before we crack on with Marcos, I'm going to hand over to Roberto to do his bit of introduction, and obviously we're keen to hear about any progress in respect of some of the changes that will be coming out of FIFA in respect to agent regulations as well. So, Roberto, how are you?
I'm fine, just recovering from that picture there, Ryan. But thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Actually, as you can see, I'm on the road. I'm not driving, by the way, but I'm here with my colleague, also from Pro Agent in the Netherlands. And well, as you might know, Pro Agent obviously is a member of EFAA. And yeah, I think it's good to share what we are doing here. We are doing a tour through a number of professional clubs here in the Netherlands. And the reason for that is that we would like to have a one-on-one conversation, well, for as much as possible with COVID, obviously, but one-on-one conversation with the people at the club, technical directors, general directors, and the intention is to, find out how they experience doing business with agents, what kind of activities they deem important for agents to carry out, and what kind of characteristics these agents should have in their opinion. And one of the elements that always has been brought across at the table, the discussion table, is that they would find it obviously very important that an agent knows what he's talking about, in the sense of not only knowing specificities concerning the contract, but also having a bit more knowledge about how the football world works, perspectives of clubs, and actually being a thorough, well-prepared business partner at the table. And yeah, immediately that brings us to one of the core elements of an organization like ProAgent, as member of EFAA, the European Football Agents Association, in trying to educate agents for as much as possible, but with these kind of seminars, doing business in, literally preparing agents for doing business in the various countries. So yeah, from that perspective, I think today is, for me, a clear argument to continue with these kind of workshops that we're organizing, these briefings, and also to realize that we're on the good path. So all the good experience that we had in the past already, let's keep on doing them. Just in my 5 minutes, just give you also a latest update on FIFA regulations. What we've understood is that the final consultation process will be finalized, and that FIFA will continue now with the process in bringing the draft regulations forward to the executive committee after the final consultation phase. I will not bother you too much with the position of EFAA in this consultation phase. What we can expect is that these regulations will be implemented. They will enter into the phase of concrete implementation, and the entry into force is envisaged for summer 2022. So not this year, but coming year. I can already tell you, as you know most probably, that not everyone is happy with some elements in those regulations. Yeah. And yeah, I wonder if the potential legal threat surrounding these regulations will make that they will indeed be implemented in our entry into force at that time. But let's see where it goes. The obvious issues being limitation on dual representation and caps on commissions. But we have discussed that in previously, and I think it might be an interesting topic also for maybe another event. Focus on doing business in Brazil today. I think you have absolutely the best speaker that you could have. I've known Marcus for quite some time now, and yeah, nothing to add. I think you've got the best. And good luck for today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Roberto. But just before I let you go and we dive into Brazil, I've got to ask you, the comments from Mina Raiola this week, were they helpful or were they a hindrance to what's happening?
What comments do you actually mean? Because I've heard a couple of them.
Yeah, it's pretty much like weaponizing up to to really counteract any regulation that FIFA puts onto them in the form of legal action against any further restrictions onto agents.
Yeah, well, from an EFA perspective, I can say that we have been basically on legal grounds and potential responsibility for non-competitive regulations and agreements from FIFA side made that EFA could not and would not participate officially in further consultation procedures. So that's it in a nutshell. Having said that, we did believe that there were many issues in the new regulations that were quite straightforward. I think that in the recent past, we discussed that EFA would be able to agree to maybe 90% of the basic elements that were in those regulations. Starting with licensing requirement, a clearinghouse, arbitration tribunal, and so on and so on. Two issues needed some further specification, but those two issues are also fundamental for potential anti-competitive behavior. And obviously, if you bring that to the market from a monopolistic perspective, as FIFA does, then you can have a legal problem. And the liability deriving to an organization like EFAA, if they would be part of such consultancy, then that will lead to some problems. But anyway, that's not the discussion for today. To answer your question, I don't think it really helped. No.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
We got there.
Ryan, I think we'll have to do a whole webinar just on the FIFA regs, rules.
Definitely. And yeah, definitely.
When they come out. But thanks, Roberto.
Thanks, Roberto.
Cheers, guys. Good luck.
Thank you, Roberto. Well, there's two things that have amazed me already in this webinar. One is the quality of Marcus's camera, his webcam, which is absolutely unreal.
I'm a movie star.
It definitely feels that. And secondly, it's the mobile coverage in the Netherlands, because if we tried that in the UK, we would. You're barely able to make a phone call here. Yeah. But fantastic. So Marcus, absolutely wonderful to have you with us. Thank you for your time. Firstly, how are you? How are things in Brazil? How's football in Brazil?
Today is a big night here. We have the finals of the Brasilian Brasileirão, the Serie A, first division of the Brazilian tournament. So we have two very important games that can decide the 2000-2001 season. Flamengo is playing against São Paulo here in São Paulo at 9:30. So if they win, they will be the champion again, like last year of the Brazilian tournament. If they draw or lose the game, Internacional is playing in another game against Corinthians. So Internacional, if they win and Flamengo loses, Internacional is the champion of Brazil 2000-2001. So it's going to be a big night tonight. I'm very excited because, as all know, Flamengo is my team. So
Flamengo is your team. So
big night.
Is there any fans in the stadiums though, Marcos?
Not yet. We are still behind, closing doors. Still struggling here. Difficult times in Brazil. Numbers are raising. Yesterday we just had like a partial lockdown, if I can call like this, because lockdown is lockdown. But anyways, partial lockdown from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. in São Paulo. Rio open, but numbers are really frightening at the moment. So I think we still have to struggle a little bit before you have our fans back to the stadiums. Let's see.
Yeah, well, if I remember Rio rightly, it doesn't really get going until about 2 o'clock in the morning anyway. So there's no point in doing curfew. Marcus, I know you're going to share some slides with us, but the vast majority of people on the call will know all about you. But if we could just get a bit of a sort of brief introduction, because you've got such an amazing history in terms of what you've done in the game and the people that you've worked with. So it'd be great just to get a bit of a flavor of how you've reached where you are.
Basically, I'm a former Flamengo football director from 96 till 99. I was a football director, first of all, of the youth squads, which was a great background that I had. I learned so much working with the youth squad. I had the Juan, Julio Cesar, Adriano, all these players that reached the Brazilian squad were my players when they were young with Flamengo. Then I became director of the football, the professional football Flamengo, 98 to 99. Then I moved to England to study in Warwick. And then I was the representative of Flamengo when they signed with ISL. For those over 30 years old, maybe remember when Flamengo signed ISL, the big partners of FIFA. Stayed there 2 years working as an international representative. Back to Brazil, launched my own firm since then, 25 years in the market, 20 years in sports law. But nowadays I can tell you that we work as a sportainment lawyers, because football is no longer just a beautiful game, but harder, a multi-billion market that shall be viewed as such, because I always say, yesterday I was giving a lecture at Real Madrid, and I was telling, the 25 students all over the world, saying that you are no longer just in a beautiful game. You are in a multi-billion entertainment industry. That's the only way that you can, the recovery curve of our industry path necessarily through the entertainment view of the business.
Marcus, have you kind of phrased there, sportainment, is it? Or
sportainment? Yeah, it's when sports meet entertainment. That's it. That's what we're doing here. This is entertainment, you know. So this is the sportainment industry. This is the next generation. That's why I'm trying to pass through the new students, you know, the new from Real Madrid, is the La Liga, all these, the Brazilian Football Confederation Academy, all these lectures that I give are all around the world. Now is about sportainment. So I think it's very important, even for our industry or the agents, because the football transfers has changed a lot throughout the years, and I'll show this a little bit very soon.
Great stuff. Well, let's get cracking with sharing your slides, and I know there's going to be a lot of information in there. Brazil is such, you know, it's such an enigma of a place generally. I think for, you know, Europeans and certainly Northern Europeans, you know, like ourselves here in the UK, you know, the idea of going to do business in Brazil has always sort of been seen with lots of sort of barriers to entry, not just the language, you know, lots of other things. So I'm really interested to get a sense of what it is to work in Brazil, what the opportunities are, and of course, you know, and I'm sure you'll touch on this sort of post-Brexit as well. There are lots of opportunities for some greater trade between certainly those in the UK and Brazil as well. But yeah, you go for it, Marcos.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. I like this subject pretty much, you know, transfers and the Brazilian football market, which is, I always say, is that if you work in football, you can think whatever you like about Brazil, but you cannot ignore the Brazilian market, because it's still, you know, the big shot in terms of transfers. So as just a little bit back on track, as what I say, you see, this is Flamengo in 1996. When I was a football director of Flamengo. This was Flamengo red headquarters. You see how we used to scout our players, you know, through pictures and photographs. The scouting, they come and say, Marcos, we have a great player playing, like, you know, the north of Brazil, 5 hours from here. So we had to take a flight or sometimes bus and go there, see the player. And then when he was, you know, showing there in that big screen, is because they were selected. Interesting to see that on my table, can't see any mobile phone. You can't see any computer. There was nothing, no technology, no WhatsApp message. Yesterday, I was conducting a big transfer and the market's already on, as you know. Yep. So everything through WhatsApp, amazing. Wow. From the first contact until the exchange of drafts, WhatsApp emails. Wow. Or WhatsApp, sorry. And just the last email with the final drafts. But you see, 96 was not like this. And you still had like great players behind me there with the yellow shirt. You see, they're all my players that reached the Brazilian national squad in various levels.
Who have we got here then? Who have we got in the background, Marcos?
There we have Juan that playing Bayer Leverkusen. We have the goalkeeper Julio Cesar from Inter Milan. You know, and then we had Adriano that played, you know, all these big teams. So, and some of very good players that didn't reach the international level, but you know, Adriano, when he was transferred to Italy in the first time, we were there involved, and the agent was my friend. He was in Brazil. And I invited him to see the Flamengo training grounds, and he saw Adriano. He went back, gave a report, and Adriano was 2 months later in Europe. So, I mean, it was great stuff. Because if you go nowadays with Scout, for example, you'll see that one click, you can find a player wherever you want. It's very easy, but it's not less challenging for scouts, for agents. So you see within 20, 25 years, you see how different we are in terms of agency. And I'm not an agent, but I advise many agents all over. So you see how it is. And just continue a little bit of storytelling. You see, this was the first transaction that I advised in football. This was in 1999. You see, there is Miguel Angel Gil. He's still the owner of Atlético de Madrid, a great friend. Actually, football is a great source of friendship. So Miguel is my friend nowadays. It's funny to see there was no euros. It still was pesetas on, you know, yeah, there was no euros. You see 500 pesetas.
We miss the peseta, don't we, Tony?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's great to see the old photos as well, isn't it? I'm loving the historical bit of this webinar so far. It's great.
Yeah, I know that doesn't look alike, but today I'm older than in that picture. You see, now I think I feel younger than that time. But in any ways, that was an experienced lawyer with 2 years of international market only. You know, very few contacts. In the middle was a former president of Flamengo, and on that day we signed Gamarra, the former Paraguayan national defender, to Flamengo. And in that day, we signed, Ryan and Tony, a 3 pages contract only. The transfer agreement was a 3 pages only. Oh, wow. The first page, the name of the parties, parties' salary, and the second page, just the transfer fee, $4.5 million. That's all. Last page, jurisdiction, FIFA, they signed the contract, player was transferred, great. No problem at all. 3 pages only, no experience at all in the market. This was in 99. Wow. And if you go to 2017, this was the largest transaction ever in football, 25 years later, 23 years later. And you see there Jean Coblin, my great friend, one of the greatest figures in football, a gentleman, a fantastic professional. Then you see Neymar signing one of his contracts with Paris Saint-Germain. This picture was in Barcelona. And I was advising him differently from the previous picture of 99. In that picture, that we have more than 10 professionals working in that transaction, wow, including lawyers, accountants, agents, the father, friends, clubs. It was a big mess. More than 75 pages were signed in that day.
Wow.
And this contract is still under dispute in 2 jurisdictions. Wow. So you see how complex the market became. So it's a big challenge for all of us involved in the market. It is all about Brazilian football as well, because we are talking here about, a Brazilian player being transferred from a giant club, Barcelona to Paris Saint-Germain, fantastic buyout movement. So you see, again, I like to bring this picture because it shows clearly how the market has evolved, changed, and become more and more challenging every day for all of us.
Yeah.
So
no pesetas involved in that deal, Marcos.
No what? No pesetas.
No pesetas involved. In that deal.
If it would be pesetas, would be a lot of zeros.
Yeah, a lot of zeros. I mean,
it's gonna be pretty complicated to do the calculation. But in any ways, I think this was a great deal, and I really doubt that this deal will be bidding soon, because the amounts involved. You are all professionals. You are more in the market than I do. You know that's going to be considered the circumstances of the market. I think I don't see this deal, but our market has been increasing number of transfers, amount involved. So every year just growing. And of course, 2020 we have the COVID. I am refrained to touch very deeply the numbers of the COVID, but they are important anyways. So after, since the transfers has been tracked by the FIFA TMS, we have our market, despite of all crises, booming every year.
Marcos, is this the transfers without going out from Brazil, players who are leaving?
No, this is international transfers, okay? We're gonna position the Brazilian market very soon. Just to give you a general overview about the numbers. So these are all official FIFA numbers, okay? So this is pretty accurate in terms of a TMS. And of course, this is very interesting for the agents, and this applies pretty much also to Brazil. A lot of agents and lawyers and Brazilian and agents, when they come to Brazil, they are focusing like, where's the next Neymar? Who's the 200 million euros deal? What's the 50 million euros deal in Brazil? Listen, gents. You see here the average of the age, 18 to 23 is the largest percent of players, and the amounts involved, circa 10,000 K to $1 million or euros. This is the average market. This is our market. The 50 plus, the 30 plus market, this is very few transactions. So I think that in Brazil, you have to focus in this range of 1823 because of the academies, and also this range of transfers, because with 10, 100, and until 1 million, by $1 million euros, I'm pretty sure that you can do a lot of good deals in Brazil if you understand the market properly, okay?
Yeah.
So here, Brazil, of course, is the largest number of players transferred abroad for 6 years. Brazil, Portugal is the biggest stream of transfer worldwide in terms of nationality and national associations, and vice versa, because we have a lot of loans, so return of players. So my first tip here for you, agents, have a look very carefully in the Portuguese market. Sometimes it's interesting to move a young player, not directly from the beaches of Copacabana Beach or from the favelas of Rio de Janeiro, directly to Manchester in the middle of a winter. Maybe sometimes it's better to place him in Portugal for 1 or 2 seasons. And, you know, Porto, Benfica, they have doing that so well. You see the numbers of Porto and Benfica and Sporting, all the Portuguese clubs. We have many clients there. So like a legal, let's say, bridge transfer, not an illegal one, but try to focus also in the Portuguese market, okay? Because this is the biggest stream of transfers ever worldwide.
Marcos, when we did the doing business in Portugal, and we had Patricia Silva Lopez, who I'm sure you'll know at Sporting Club, and it was interesting because they had a Brazilian player that arrived at the age of 12, I think it was, and then he's gone subsequently into England with West Bromwich Albion. So it's interesting, and it's obvious that the language barriers, and it's easier to acclimatize coming from Portugal, coming to Brazil to Portugal than maybe England or other countries. But the numbers are still high for the other European countries.
Yeah, I mean, they're still high, but you see clubs, when you have these groups like the City Group, you know, not only the City Group, you have other smaller groups that have clubs in Eastern Europe. They are all doing like this sort of transactions. You know, sometimes they use their parent clubs in order to acclimatize a player, which is a very interesting strategy, not only in terms of a proper adaptation of the player in European soil, but also in terms of monetization of the deal, if you do it properly. I'm pretty sure that an European or a Premier League club will rather prefer a player that has been already playing in Europe for the, irrespective of the tournament, if it's a Europa Cup or Champions League or whatever, the track record of the player, it's like a European grade, you know, because he's already playing there. So that's my suggestion for the agents. Maybe focus also on young players, but also in smaller associations in terms of adaptation, you know, because it's not easy for a young player to reach, you know, the Premier League. It's very tough tournament. It's not easy.
I think Marcus, also there was, particularly in England and the Premier League, which you've just mentioned, you know, we did have quite a rigid work permit structure for players coming from South America, and it was really quite difficult to bring a player directly from South America. But I think we've seen with the new the governing body endorsement and Brexit, the rules are a little bit more relaxed, so it's a little bit easier potentially to bring a player direct from Brazil into the Premier League, for example, or particularly a young player as well, than it was in the past. But whether that's a good strategy for what you're saying, as a, you know, you get them acclimatized, you get them a bit of European competition, that'll be interesting to me.
Yeah, still, I totally agree, Tony. We had so many problems, not problems, but it was so difficult in the past. We did now at the Nilsson. We work in Juninho Paulista in the past. Wellington Silva, all these players that were playing the UK were so difficult, and some conditions to conclude the deal was that that player got his work permit. But now with these new rules, and I think this is synonymous. I've been talking a lot with agents that work pretty much. I was talking to Pini Zahavi this week. He's a great client of ours, and he was pretty optimistic about you know, these young startups that now with the new rules will be more flexible, because at the end of the day, the UK, they have autonomy to settle their own immigration and work permit policies.
Cool.
So I think that's going to be a great, but in any ways, I have already European clubs, Premier League clubs or English clubs that they sign a Brazilian player and keep them playing in Brazil, or they transfer them on loan. Of course, you have to respect the FIFA regulations in terms of limitation of loans, because this is the idea, the ratio behind the FIFA regulations is to control all this movement of loans around. We had clubs in Europe that they had around the 25, 35 players on loan.
Yeah.
So this could be not good for the development of the player. This could be not be good for the national squads, because sometimes, for the training and education of a young player, this is not good. So, I mean, still big challenge, but I still suggest, depending on the culture, on the tournament, on the club that the club is playing for, I think that I still suggest a player to acclimatize maybe in another country like Portugal or even Spain. So definitely I suggest that. You see, again, number of transfers, Brazil on the top again for the last 7 years. So it's a great market. Have a look on it. Don't focus on the 50 million plus deal, but also in the 100, 1 million, whatever deal, because we have so many clubs that we're going to see here, have so many divisions here in Brazil. We have so many great scouts. So focus. But of course, this has been hit, the COVID. You see the January FIFA 2001 snapshot numbers has been decreased, but it's very interesting to know that transfers without a fee has the vast majority, and just a few transfers with fees. So I've been advising, we advise around 35, between 35 and 40 clubs in Brazil. The last season, to 2020 and 2021, the majority of the deals that have been done, not only domestically, but also abroad, are challenging for lawyers and agents, because you have so many loans, buyout options, sell-on clauses, buyback options. So I think the agents must be very familiar with all these tools that you have at our disposal, because, this is the trend, receivables. So please, focus on that, be prepared. If you want to do deal in Brazil, clubs are ready to do payment installments. We have already companies here doing the receivables of the future payments. Clubs in Brazil are already used to deal with loan, buyback, sell-on. So, I mean, be again familiar with all these possibilities that we have in the market, okay? And of course, the numbers has been lowering. And this is also reflects, as I said, the type of transfers that we have at the moment. Transfer of free agent players, transfers on loan, no fees involved. So this is our reality, not only in Brazil, but also, I think, worldwide. Here is a very interesting chart. This is a brand new from FIFA, published 2 weeks ago only. Again, you see here, out of contract in January 2001, almost 60% of the transfer. So we have a lot of free agent players around, and these are valuable players. We just conclude a big deal that will be announced very soon. I can't disclose it right now, but you're going to see the news very soon. A typical free agent player, end of contract, and clubs in Europe are ready to take over these players. So that's, you see, numbers never lies. You see there, out of contract, permanent transfer on loan, almost 20% of transfers on loan.
We heard, Marcos, we heard about a big Brazilian talent, experienced player who's a free agent just in January, leaving his club in January. I'm not going to say his name, but I think we know who we're talking about. I think he was playing in one of the very good clubs in Spain. It'll be interesting to see where he goes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be, this top player, the top of the pyramid, will be always on move.
Yes.
Chelsea, absolutely. Real Madrid, Barcelona, Manchester United, and the City, all these Juventus, all these big clubs, they need the transfers. They need the big names. They need the big move on the market. It's like a chess game. So the first move comes, everything comes around. So That's what I'm talking about. You see here the other chart, Tony and Raya, the age of the players, young players. You are very experienced English, people from football in England. You see Arsenal, the movement that they did in 2019, spending a lot of money, but with no big names, only young players around. Aston Villa, the same. This is a trend. And it's good because the academies in Brazil are booming, because Brazilian clubs, since they are running low money, they are focused now in the academies. Clubs worldwide are focused in the academies. So I think 18 to 23 years old is the flavor of the month. Definitely, you see the January number, and also the U18 club players, which is a big challenge for us because we have so many European and worldwide clubs searching for our services to make it possible the transaction of a U18 player. Bearing in mind that U18 player cannot be registered or transferred abroad, but they can sign contracts with European clubs. We did that, very old times, Fabio and Rafael in Manchester United, with Wellington Silva in Arsenal. We did now Vinicius Jr., with Real Madrid. All this player, we advised the transactions and were U18 players. It's a big challenging deal, that, because of insurance issues, salaries, agent fees. Sometimes it's a big challenge how to pay the agents in this sort of transaction. So that's the reality. You see, of course, this is European. The numbers has been lower in the last season. Clubs has facing losses. The golden circle here, the average of less 10% in revenues. So of course, these also impact the Brazilian football, because these are the buyers. We are the sellers.
I mean, Marcus, is most of the clubs in Brazil, you've mentioned some of the Brazilian clubs, and you've mentioned the very good academies and the youth players getting game time and things like that. And most of the Brazilian clubs a player trading model. They're open to business. They're looking to develop players and looking to sell them on. Is there any that aren't doing that?
Yeah, the big clubs you're going to see here, the Serie A clubs, they are, they have great academies. Flamengo, Palmeiras, Corinthians, São Paulo, all of these clubs. Fluminense is a fantastic club to deal with. Second division also, we have great clubs. However, all these top 20 clubs in Brazil, they have scouts all over Brazil. We have around 1,000 clubs all over. So, wow. The scouts are everywhere trying to bring these new starlets to the clubs of the top 20 clubs in Brazil. So we have a very strong, it's pretty similar to Mexico. You see, for those that have been doing deals with Mexico, it's a great market, but it's very powerful domestic market.
Yeah.
You to have an idea, Ryan, Tony, we had around last year 16,000 international transfers worldwide. Only in Brazil, we have around 13,000 domestic transfers per season. So it's a huge market around. Yeah. That's why I strongly suggest agents that are listening to us here to start their contacts with Brazilian agents, okay? Because and I'm sorry to say that, but I say that to Brazilian CBF when I give lectures here in Brazil. You don't watch Brazilian football. You watch the Brazilian players, right? You don't know who is playing tomorrow. Yes, I know who is playing the Premier League within the next 3 weeks, but you don't know who's playing Brazil next week, even not tonight. But maybe you know who is the striker of the year in Brazil, the best U20 Olympic or 18 national of Brazil. So you don't see Brazilian football. You see Brazilian players.
Well, Marcus, you were saying, for the agents listening in today, if you want to start doing some business in Brazil, it's best to team up with a trusting Brazilian agent that you can trust and work with. Is that what you're saying to general advice?
Tony, definitely. This is an advice that I give to the young agents in Brazil, because I have a lot. Frederico, that I was inviting us, maybe he will join us, I don't know. But I work for him for the last, let's say, 15 years. When he started to manage young players in Fluminense of 13 years old, 14 years old. And when they are too young, that's okay. But as soon as they start to reach the national level, playing for professional level, the big sharks come. And I told him, the first thing that you do is to cooperate with a big agent. So he started to make contacts with Kia, Giuliano Bertolucci, you know, these guys that I know since ever. And was good because he managed to do great deals with European clubs. When someone wants to deal with Premier League, for example, I say, listen, you have to work with Pini Zahavi. You have to work, I don't know, maybe with Jonathan. We have to work, I don't know, with Warsaman. I mean, it will depend. You have to work with Tony, Ryan, but you know, never underestimate the power of the local knowledge. Never. So this is very important. It's a very complex market, but of course, you see here, very interesting to understand how the Brazilian clubs are at the moment. This is in Brazilian reais, okay? But you see, let's take Flamengo here, this one here, okay? The richest club in Brazil. This is the total revenue of Flamengo pre-COVID, okay? So it's around 1 billion Brazilian reais, which is roughly around 150 million euros a year. But if you see like Barcelona, Real Madrid, Manchester United, close to 1 billion euros, is still a big gap. But you see here in gray, in green, you see here, this is the number, the amount out of 950 million reais, 300 million reais in transfer of players. So this is around 50 million euros in players. So we had Paquetá to AC Milan, you had Vinicius Junior to Real Madrid, you had players to Korea, Japan, Middle East.
The green's highlighting the importance of transferring and getting transfer receipts in for the Brazilian clubs, isn't it? Because it's such a big amount, particularly in Flamengo, but also in Santos and some of the other clubs as well, huh?
Yeah.
It's a really big percentage.
Exactly. Yeah, this you would need translation here because numbers are numbers. You see here Santos, Palmeiras, they all depend pretty much in players' deals, match day. So now if you take into consideration the COVID, 2021 is still be a very tough year for us. So we still depending very much because we don't have the blue, which is match day.
Yeah.
You don't have this purple, or we do have, but not too much because we have very low social movement in the clubs. And of course, this has been negotiated, which is broadcast deal. It has been negotiated everywhere. So you see, transfers are still a big part of the Brazilian market. Okay, of course, Flamengo, we had the Cuellar to Al Hilal. We have Vinicius Junior to Real Madrid. We had, Paquetá to AC Milan. Here, Santos, we had Rodrigo to Real Madrid for 15 million euros. Yeah. So, I mean, it's still, big clubs with big youth academies. All these players for Flamengo that I mentioned, not, of course, but Cuellar, they were from the Flamengo's academies. So you see, this is the reality, the numbers of the Brazilian market, okay? This is the top 10 clubs in Brazil, okay? You to know, Flamengo, Palmeiras, Grêmio, Inter. So it's still like this in 2020, okay? Just to let you know. So here it goes, the numbers, the largest number of players abroad, more than 1,000 players in 82 different national associations. The most common destinations, Portugal, Korea, Spain, Italy. Okay, again, if you don't want to do a player, if you are not working with these regions or these national associations, doesn't mean that you are not in the game. As I said, maybe some of these players in Portugal will gonna be playing in other European countries very soon. Korea, not that much. Spain, yes. Italy, yes. So as soon as they reach the European soil, the game starts. So focus in Portugal, focus in Spain, second division clubs. Yeah.
It's interesting you've got Korea on there. How's that come about? Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I used to do a lot of deals in Korea. Japan is a big market for us as well. Yeah, yesterday I had a meeting with a big Japanese client with our Tomohiro Inagawa. He's Tony Ryan. We have at the moment 4 Japanese clubs clients of our firm because they are doing frequent deals in Brazil. So they need a proper local advice. You see, Since Zico, Leonardo playing there, Zico, all these big players, Brazilian in 2001, 2002, the booming of the Japanese market. It's not big money. We have there Brazilian receive an average salaries of let's say 1.5, 1.3 million euros, not more than that. Transfer fee, they never go beyond 4 million, 3 million.
And I suppose, Marcos, China as well was maybe not so much now, but in the last 3 or 4 years, China's been an important market for you, I expect.
It's a bubble, Tony. I don't think that this is, this is real. Numbers there are real. It's very hard to sustain. And now with the new rules and regulations of the government, you see that it was a Disneyland. Now they have to change the way of doing business. I really strongly suggest you to do doing business in China, because it's a great market for all of us. Absolutely. You have to put this in your agenda. So just continue here. You see, you have around 742 professional clubs, okay, not counting amateur clubs. So you see 385 have more than 1,200 clubs registered before the Brazilian National Association. This is not accounting the amateur, academies all around that out of the radar of the Brazilian FA. So it's a great market because you have players everywhere. You see how many players you have registered at the moment. More than 22,000 players officially registered before CBF. Amateur contracts, you see, you have then more than 60,000 professional players around, registered in Brazil. So this is a lot, considering. Please, Tony and Ryan, you can just cut me whenever you want because of the time, okay? But in any way, I'm just trying to give you a general overview. That's number fine. Of coaches, retirement certificates. You have 19 tournaments organized by CBF. You see, this is a big source of players and talents. Youth tournaments, women tournaments, regional and state tournaments, because in Brazil, it's a different way. The first 3 months, January, February, March, we have the local tournament, meaning Rio de Janeiro tournament, São Paulo tournament, Minas Gerais tournament, and this is not recognized by FIFA, okay? This is our luxuries pre-season. So you play local, and then the national tournament starts. You see international transfers, outgoing permanent transfers, loans. This is 1 year, okay? And look at the intermediaries numbers. We have a lot of intermediaries in Brazil, but very few are active. Around, not very few, but it's around 800, I could say 900 are active. And as always, FIFA likes to say, but at the end of the day, it's always the usual suspects. Big deals are always the usual suspects.
In England, we probably have about 2,500 registered intermediaries.
I think in Italy you have 5,000. In Italy, everyone is an agent. Sorry, Mino, but it's true.
It might be a good place just to pause there, Marco. We'll pause there for a bit because you can take a drink because you've spoken for a good length of time. So have a little rest and Ryan, if you can introduce.
Brilliant.
It's a lot to take in, isn't it?
Yeah.
But we're going to give everyone the slides as well afterwards.
No problem. I give you the slides. But I know that you have a lot of questions, and you can answer later on how we registered an agent in Brazil, the procedures to do that, if you can do this alone and you have to partner with someone. These are very key and important questions.
Good stuff. Well, that was a fantastic overview. Thank you very much, Marco. So as always, in the middle of these sessions, we would like to get one of our partners involved, and it's great to welcome Jose Ramon back from Player Lens. Jose, how are you? Oh, I think we just need to unmute. Oh, there we go.
Thank you, Ryan.
How are you? You okay?
Very well. Everything is fine here. Thanks.
Excellent. Are you in Spain at the moment, or?
Yeah, I'm in Madrid.
Oh, fantastic. Excellent. Wonderful stuff. So really, we've got 5 minutes. Some of the guys won't have known Player Lens before. Other people will. So a bit of a combination of how Player Lens is going, what new things you've got going on. I know from speaking to your partner, Lee, there's some really, really interesting projects that you've got going on. So we're keen to hear what's happening with Player Lens.
Let me just share my screen.
Sure.
Very quickly. Maybe just a moment, please. Here we go. Right. Oh no. Okay. Anyway, what I will do is I'm allowed to share the screen here, Tony?
Yep, go for it.
Yeah, I had some difficulties as well. Sometimes, Ramon, this appears, sometimes doesn't
Thank
appear.
you, Marcos. Let me share. Gracias. Let me share quickly here. If we find this. Oh, here we go. Well, let me go from there. Okay. I cannot find this, but let me go from here. Okay. So very quickly here. Thank you for the invitation. I worked for Real Madrid for like 10 years before joining Player Lens. So I don't know, Marcos, if maybe we spoke before, but I was familiar with some legal advisory firms in Brazil previously with some signings that we had there. So Player Lens, what we are aiming to do is we have been compared to like the LinkedIn of football. We are aiming to become the football marketplace, the digital marketplace in football. We are currently working with around 700 football clubs around the world.
Wow.
With these clubs, I would say 45% of clubs are based in Europe. The other 45% is based in South America and North America. And the other 10% is actually growing in Asia. I very much like the Asian market. Absolutely, definitely, because what Marco was saying, that the attractiveness, mostly about the Brazilian players on going to Brazil. Not only we are just realizing that it's not attractive just for Brazil, just for Japan, but also Indonesia or Thailand. It's also very open, and they are keen to have Brazilian players. So we are aiming to generate this connectivity between all the clubs, where the clubs are able to advertise the players that they want to loan or transfer in the transfer windows, and we are generating that connectivity and that capacity to message each other straight away. In addition to this, during the last lockdown during spring on 2020, we give the access into all the agents to be part of the platform. So from there, what we are allowing there is that we offer them the capacity to have their own team on the players that they represent with the previous, let's say, checking on that they represent directly the players and that they are the right owners, and then they can interact directly with the players. No? So we definitely defend all the player agents, absolutely. And we are also aiming to protect themselves from other third, fourth, fifth agents, no, that are right there, that maybe sometimes are making more difficult to make happen certain businesses. No, from there, what we are also realizing is that in terms of what the current situation we are living today, I had some slides about the revenues, but I think that Marco explained very well on the how is the industry going today, how are the clubs struggling actually, and we are just realizing that many clubs as well. I think before that, CONMEBOL South America was like more like an export market, exporting players into Europe or Asia. But what we are realizing is that in Europe there is also the players in Europe are really keen to find opportunity in South America, because I think that for me, until I was not conscious about that, but the salaries in South America can be also really high. Let's say the top 5 clubs in Brazil, that Marcos will know much better than me, the top clubs in Colombia, the top 3 clubs in Uruguay. Of course, Mexico for me is like the 6th or 7th league in the world for me in terms of the size that they are able to pay. Actually, there was a former Real Madrid player who moved to Club America in Mexico. So it's this is what we are able to offer also in the platform with this transition of players. No?
And Jose, we were talking about Brazil with Marcos today. You've got some clubs in Brazil, have you? How's that working out? And some agents, Brazilian agents as well?
Yeah, we are working already with several clubs in Brazil. Definitely, all the clubs are really open, no, to work with us, because at the end, the clubs in Brazil, for what I am understanding with some conversations with them, is that they are pretty much struggling, no, in terms of revenues. They need to report revenues, because also many cases they need to find new stadiums. There are many infrastructures that are actually being stopped because the current COVID situation, and from there they are open to sell any player. No, I think that the situation is that the cases, know that Marcos will know much better than me, is that there are cases on players that you don't really know who is the agent, no, when you're dealing there. So I think that this is the most important information, no, when you want to go for a player. No, I think, as Marcos said, when European clubs are watching Brazilian games, they're watching the Brazilian player, no, not just not the league, not the Serie A, Serie B, or Serie C, no. But I think that definitely all the clubs we had last summer, I would say most of the players in the platform from Brazil, no, because I mean that any of them were open to that, no, for any business, no, and I think that they are struggling about that. I think that the agents definitely have just a very good connection, the big agents in Brazil, but I think it's not about the issue is not to make business on the top 3 talented players in Brazil. The issue is how to make the business with all the other 300 players as well, no? That they have many opportunities to go in Asia, in the AFC Confederation in general, going into Europe, or even in other countries in South America as well, no? So I think that now pretty much the transition of players, I wouldn't say that there is a clear rule on how the players in Brazil, they have to move to Europe. I think that even there was a very beginning when I joined Player Lens to co-lead the company with my business partner, we also moved a player from Europe to Brazil. So this is also something that shows that they pay good salaries, and that the players and I think it's also very competitive leagues and competitions, no? So it's also something to bear in mind.
Yeah, I think you know the point you make, Jose, about the club having some clarity on who the agent is. Tony, I know there's a famous story here involving a Brazilian player, Alfonso Alves, and when he turned up to Middlesbrough, I think there was 7 or 8 potential agents involved in that deal, and he had to decide which one was going to be his agent.
That's it.
Yeah, it was a bit frustrating. I heard that somebody told me that story. It was a bit frustrating when there was, 4 or 5 agents. The one brought him from Brazil, the one that worked in Holland, the one brought him from England, so it was slightly complicated. Yeah.
But Tony, listen, this is a very common practice nowadays. Frederico is joining us now. He can help us later. But cooperation between agents, depending on the deal, this is not a problem at all.
Absolutely.
Federico did great deals in cooperation. In football, it's very hard to do a deal alone. You have to cooperate with agents all over. Sometimes 2, 3 agents, depends. Someone has a good contact in the club. The other has a good contact with the player. Someone has a good contact with, the player's agent in Brazil. I mean, this will depend pretty much on the deal. I think that the most important thing is to have a proper representation contract signed in place and registered. And also a cooperation agreement between yesterday I was doing a cooperation agreement between 3 agents. If it's all written, that's okay. As soon as the deals go through, payments are done, and that's all.
I think that's the point, Marcus. As long as it's clear and transparent, and you've got the deal sorted out, and everyone's clear on who's going to lead and how it's going to work, and the commission split.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's what we're talking about in the Doing Business series. You can't expect to be based in a European country and be able to operate easily in Brazil unless you're going to spend a hell of a long time over there and get used to the market. And that's 10 years in the making, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we have regulations all over. In Brazil, we have the intermediate regulations, and I am afraid to say that Brazil has at the moment one of the most developed legal framework in terms of registration and intermediaries. Even FIFA, it's asking the Brazilian EFAA how to draft bridge transfers, for example, regulations that we have here since a lot. TPO regulations, that Brazil was a source of TPO, like in Uruguay and Argentina. And Brazil, if you go to the Brazilian National Federation website, everything's there. How to register the name of the agent, who is representing who, amount of transfers involved of each agent. I mean, transparency must be the flavor of the month, not only to the national associations, but also between the agents. You know, when you have transparency, it's a way of doing business. As I said, it's no longer like a club of good friends. It's a multi-billion industry, and you have to be professionals on that.
Absolutely, fantastic. Ali has shared the details of how to get in touch with Player Lens in the chat, so please do contact that. Jose, thanks for your time at the moment. Please do stick around for any questions in a little bit. As everybody can see, we've been joined by Federico. I'm not gonna attempt your second name for it, Federico. You'll have to tell me. We just need you to
unmute. I think you are mute. Yeah, you are mute.
Okay.
Federico, how do I say your surname?
Right. Federico, if you allow me, listen, Tony, Ryan, for all those that are listening to us, I know Federico from almost 20 years. He's one of the greatest and most professional agents that I ever met, despite that he's very young. He learned some hard lessons since from the beginning, and now he's playing, you know, the big ball. He's playing hard, and he's everywhere in Europe. He's partnering with great agents all over. He had great players in the Premier League, in Spain, in Portugal. He's very strong. So I'm suspicious to talk about Federico because I think he's the representative of the new generation, if I can say that, Federico, despite your experience. But I think that he's one of the most professional agents that you can find in the market.
Fantastic.
Sorry, Federico.
It's absolutely brilliant to have you with us, and Marcus has already given a great overview of what the Brazilian market looks like, and we're going to use the rest of the time really to dig into that a little bit. For those guys that are listening, now's your time to really start getting those questions into the Q&A box, and I'll make sure I'll get through all of them as well. Yeah, to both Federico and Marcus, in terms of some of the practical steps to becoming an agent in Brazil, what's the registration process like? Is there a fee to be paid? Is there any insurance that's required to be taken out as well? What's the process of becoming an agent?
Yeah, yes, you can to be registered in Brazil. You have, I mean, if you are a foreign agent, okay, because here we are talking for foreign agents. So for the intermediaries that are not resident in Brazil who want to provide services here, they must do so through an intermediary register with CBF or to be registered in CBF, meaning if you are a foreign agent or you do your business through Frederico, or you have to register yourself here in Brazil. We have many international already agents registered here, Branchini, Pini, Pastorello, all these big agents are registered in Brazil because, you know, sooner or later, someone we're going to be doing business here in Brazil. So of course you have a lot of proceedings to everything we can help is in the FIFA, in the CBF website. You have a form you have to apply. There are some certain preconditions to be registered, proof of residence, and so on. And then you can present a professional liability insurance that covers up, as far as I'm concerned, 100,000 euros. Okay. This is the minimum professional liability coverage. And you have to pay a small amount to be registered. I think it's around 1,000 euros to be registered, and then go through the process. CBF double check all the information provided, and then you are registered in Brazil. And you have to keep your file updated every year, okay? 1 year anniversary from your registration, you have to keep it updated, including the renewal of your professional liability insurance.
Okay.
Federico, it's you know, the insurance part is not something that we're really used to here in the UK. How are you positive about how the CBF handles the registration and the management of agents? You know, obviously Marcus is quite sort of glowing in its term. In terms of yourself, who's acting as an agent, do you share that positivity? Do you think the CBF do a good job of managing agents in Brazil?
Yeah, yes. First of all, Marcos, thanks for the invitation. Again, we are here to listen, to learn with you guys. Good afternoon, everyone. Regarding the registration, Marco knows me. I'm 40, but I'm involved in this business for 20. So it's like half of the life, you know. Yeah. So today we represent 80 players, 80. I mean, wow. It's a long history, and Marcos is our lawyer for a long time, and he knows our development, how it goes. About this registration, it's good to speak about it, because maybe also from this conversation we can take some doubts that I also have, because, for example, now we are registered in 4 countries, in Brazil, in the EFAA, in Portugal, and in Italy. Yeah. But most of the time, these regulations, it's changed every year. In Italy, especially, every time they move. In the FA, it's relaxed. We make it every year. That's it. No problem. With the FA, it's simple. We just put the credit card. That's it. In Brazil, also in Portugal. In Brazil, it's Marcos maybe can help me on that. We have our registration here that we pay every year, the insurance. And as Marcos said, the name of our players and the contract period is open. It's open in the website, and the other agents also can see. And this is a problem for us most of the time, because our best players, for example, I don't see any problem to have the insurance every year. And I think it's valid, because this cut a lot of people that wants to be inside football business, but they are not ready for that. Yep. If you have a little bit of regulations and rules, it makes more professional. But I think this is a problem, Marcos, because when we work with top talents in Brazil, top talents, and many times we have problem because other big agents, they want to have, or at least approach our players. And this is a problem that we have here in Brazil. And Ryan was talking about this. And Federico, the number of agents involved in the players.
Yeah, Federico, what sort of commissions are like in Brazil then? Is it, you know, we talk about 5% potentially in England, and in some European countries it's 10%. What's your take on the commissions that you can earn in Brazil and with the Brazilian clubs themselves?
Yeah, the clubs in Brazil are trying to establish something between 5 and 7. Yeah. To be very honest with you, we have a big investment, especially in the youngs with the families. Yes. I really don't like this idea to work between 5 and 7. I always try to get the 10% from the past. Sometimes it's possible. Sometimes it's possible. Marcos knows about one deal that we are almost done now in UK, and we are working with 10%, and it's going through. It's going through. It's happening. Yeah. It's happening.
There is no, sorry, Ryan, there is no a cap in Brazil, okay? Yeah. The minimum is 3%. If there is a claim, and then I can touch the issue of the local dispute resolution chamber, which works very well in Brazil. Yeah. All our European agents and the Asian agents that are doing Brazil, we refer their contracts to the local DRC, because it's independent, it's recognized by FIFA, and its decisions are enforceable all over. So I can enforce a DRC decision before the FA. I can enforce before the Dutch and vice versa. I have cases here of decisions from the Dutch Federation that we are enforcing here in Brazil, and we are doing pretty well.
Yeah.
But in Brazil, we don't have the caps. So minimum 3% if there is nothing in the contract, and there is no maximum. But of course, you have to be very careful not to charge a commission that shall be viewed as a third-party ownership.
Yeah. Just going back to Federico's point, Tony, really interestingly that other agents can see the status of the relationship between agents and players. Of course, here in England, the only information that you can glean from the Football Association about whether there is a representation contract in place or not what the date is, not who the player is, not who the agent is. So that's really interesting. Go on, Tony.
And Federico, do you partner up with any agencies in the UK, in Italy, in Spain, in Portugal, or how does your business work?
We are changing a little bit every year. In the beginning, we were always, as Marco said, we always have to cooperate. It's very difficult to move and to work alone, as always. In UK, we always work with the office of Kia.
Right. Okay.
Normally, 90%. Yes, 90% of the cases of the last deals we did in UK, we did with Kia office. It's a good partner. It's a strong company, and we have no issue. We have no problem. 2 years ago, we made a very interesting deal that was also a deal that many clubs in England call me, especially the big ones, to understand how we did this deal. It was the deal of João Pedro from Fluminense to Watford. I don't know if you guys recognize who is the player.
Yeah.
It's a young boy that is doing his development in England.
Yeah.
He was moved. He was not moved. The contract was signed when he was 17, and this is a deal that I did myself together with the owner of Watford. Straight. It was a very interesting deal and very different deal because we had to have many authorizations from the FA to do. Because he was a minor.
Because he's a minor, he's under 18. Yeah. And I take it he's a Brazilian national.
Yes, he was not European.
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, Federico, the post-Brexit changes now would see that deal not happen. You can't sign a player that's under 18 now.
We have a new regulations of points, right? We have if this deal was made now, it would not be possible.
Yeah, it would not be possible. No.
And because also João Pedro, he was not a European citizen at the time.
Yeah.
Now we have a system of points with the Brexit, and he should be playing the first team. He should be playing in the first level league, that is Brazil is included. It seems easier, in my opinion,
Federico,
with the Brexit.
When your player came into Watford, and it's a very good club, did you come over with him for a set period? Did he learn English? What sort of things did you make sure to make him easier for him to settle?
Tony, this deal was closed 1 year before, so we had enough time to prepare the family in Brazil. Perfect. English classes that they are still doing in England. The process was hard because he arrived in the middle of the season in January. Then it was difficult to adapt. Then it was even more difficult because Watford was relegated to the Championship. But now with all the problems, he's developing very, very well. He's today the youngest player in all leagues in England with more goals. Below 21, below 21 years old, he's the player with more goals, and he's only 19. He has 9 goals.
And Watford, for the guys, are doing really well now. They're on a bit of a run of form in the Championship, and you might just get into the automatic promotion places. which would be great to get
But
back.
you know what, Tony, Ryan, and Fred, when we do these young players or U18 players to UK, we always include clauses in the contract according to which the club is also has to cooperate, to facilitate the player to acclimatize. English classes, when the player is in holidays in Brazil, he flies to England, stay there like 15 days, 20 days to see the training grounds with the family. This is very important for the agents to include this sort of cooperation between the parties, because as soon as a player reach the UK soil, he knows what he's talking about. He already knows, some language skills, and this is very important.
I want to get through some more questions because there's lots of questions into me that I want to get through. Unsurprisingly, Marcus, there's been a question from Sharon that relates around the kind of, who the player pass and who owns the player, really going back into that sort of third party ownership situation that was previously a bit prevalent in South America. What is the situation now regards that? Obviously, from a FIFA perspective, it's not allowed, but in reality, what's the situation in Brazil?
I mean, Brazil was the first. The Brazilian FA was the first FA to endorse the FIFA regulations, Article 18Bs and 83rd. For those who doesn't know, I was one of the members of the FIFA task force. Of course, I was against the prohibition. I was much more for the regulation of the TPO, because I was directly involved in the transfer of Tevez and Mascherano due to West Ham. I was of the lawyer of MSI in that case. So we are doing nothing but replicating the sort of transaction that we were doing vastly in South America. Of course, but I always say that in FIFA, the market is much way faster than the regulators. So, I mean, when we think that we manage to regulate a certain situation in football, be sure that the market's already 5 pages ahead. So, I mean, we still have, we are all professional here. So we are not enthusiastic amateurs. So we know how's the market's doing. FIFA, that's why FIFA now implemented the regulations on bridge clubs, because they know that there are a lot of doings in bridge transfers of TPOs. Nothing prohibits someone to run a club, maybe not directly involved, but as an investor. I mean, what I can say is that TPO, it's in place everywhere. Maybe not as before, but you know that somehow we have some issues still related to TPO. That's why here in first hand, we have a proposal now with CONMEBOL already brought to FIFA to regulate the TPO in South America for the next 2 years in order to help the recovery of the industry. Okay, just to let you know, this is news for you.
Right.
We just dropped that. It was like 10 lawyers in South America. We were leading this process. And I think that we have a very interesting regulation. Transparency is good for football, good for players, good for everyone.
When we're talking about recovery across all countries, one thing that we've got here in the vast majority of European countries is clubs that are owned by individuals or companies that can rely on their personal wealth to carry on investing into those institutions. Now, my understanding is that most of all of the Brazilian clubs aren't currently owned. But what we've seen with Red Bull and one of the clubs in Brazil, can you see a situation where Brazilian clubs do end up changing how they are constituted so they can be owned by private individuals or firms?
Yeah, most of the clubs in Brazil are non-for-profit associations. If you see the top 10 clubs that I showed here before, none of them are private companies. So it's very hard to have private owners, or they become public as Manchester United, for example, or Assad like Benfica or Sporting. So clubs in Brazil are still run as a non-for-profit, despite of the fact that Flamengo has almost 1 billion euros. 1 billion reais, 200 million euros in revenues. They are run as professional because they executives on board. But the structure is a non-for-profit. Issues like clubs like Red Bull, it's much more a partnership between Red Bull and a local club in the countryside of Brazil, of São Paulo. But sometimes we have, at the moment, our firm is working in the constitution of 3 clubs, which is a trend Okay, but of course, these clubs are not starting on the first division. They have to come from, you know, lower divisions and then to ascend. And then these clubs are ready to plug in some individuals. Of course, we have cases like, you know, Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City, Shakhtar Donetsk. But of course, they have wealth individuals behind. But they have a legal framework with the financial fair play, license system that can regulate this sort of investment. In Brazil, we don't have any. So this is the difference between Europe and Brazil at the moment.
And Marcus, do you think that'll lead somebody like the City Group to buy one of the clubs in Brazil, or what do you think? How are you thinking ahead? What are you looking at?
It's impossible. I know City Group pretty well. It's impossible that a Brazilian club is not in their range. Because, I mean, it's Brazil. They have clubs in Uruguay. They have clubs in California, in New York, and India, and not in Brazil. I'm pretty sure they are looking closely here at the market. Maybe Frederico knows better than I do, but I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that sooner or later they will be alive here in Brazil.
Come on, Frederico. Which club would you be? Which club, if you had 100, 200 million pounds or euros, and you wanted to invest, which club would it be for you in Brazil, Frederico?
Great question. Great question.
Yes, it's very, very interesting point, because in my opinion, the clubs should be the clubs in Brazil, no matter what size, Flamengo, doesn't matter. In my opinion, they should be open for the investors. They should be. It's the salvation of these clubs.
Yeah,
it's the salvation. This is my opinion.
Well, which club? I'm going to press you, Frederico. Which club would you go for if it was your money?
I would.
Go ahead, Tony. Pressure him.
No. It's very easy. For me, I would go for Fluminense, because I work a lot with young talents. They have the best youths in Brazil. They develop very well the boys.
So you're buying into the academy.
Yeah, Tony, we have clubs here that are already prepared, you know, to partner, like Bahia, Ceará, Fluminense, you know, some clubs here, depending on what you want, because, you know, there are so many reasons for a club ownership, right? You have political, geopolitical, sportive, economical, whatever, publicly relation, fandom. It depends what was the intentions behind a club ownership. But we have plenty in Brazil that I'm pretty sure that are ready to have investors.
Tony, the answer to your question is the one nearest the beach. That's the answer to your question. Yeah, well, there you go. Like,
is it still Fluminense? Oh, great.
I've made it really simple for you. Frederico, another question. We've spoken a lot about Brazilian players leaving Brazil, coming to Europe, coming to the UK. I want to talk about Europeans coming to Brazil as well. You know, in the last few years, I think we've had one British player, Kazim Richards, play in Brazil. Do you get much communication from European agents wanting to bring more players to Brazil and needing your help to get in? Yeah.
Yes. We have a lot of requests from agents in Europe that we know, trying to move their players from Europe to Brazil. To be honest with you, it's not very common for me, because we have so many players to take care that it's not our kind of business. It's not the kind of business that we want to do, but if possible, we would like to help. The other point, I don't know if Marcos agree with me, is that many of the clubs in Brazil, they prefer to have players from other countries from South America, not from Europe. I don't know if the regulations or the visa or only the adaptation. The adaptation is more difficult, but the Brazilian clubs, they are always ready and they are more prepared to receive players from South America than Europe. We have some names here. For example, Kalu in Botafogo, that came and didn't work good, and they are releasing him. We had Clarence Seedorf that did a very, very nice job. We had Petkovic that came from Serbia very, very early and did a very, very good job, and he's still here today. He's a journalist here.
Yeah, because
But
there are players, Federico, that you know, one of my favourite players is the lad Gignac at the Mexican club Tigres, the French player. It's
Gignac.
yeah, Gignac, top player. And it's always amazed me that more of the European players haven't made their way over to Central and South America. Do you think? Do you think things might change? Do you think and potentially as the construct of the clubs changes as well? If they're owned by Americans or they're owned by Chinese, there might be a bit more of a geographical spread of the players in Brazil.
One thing I'm sure about, Ryan, if there is a big name and this big name is under good physical conditions, for sure he will be always he will have always an open door in Brazil. Yeah. I'm sure about.
Yeah,
all the good, even Yaya Touré, that was many clubs from Brazil tried to sign him, and at the end he didn't want to come. For example, I'm talking about Yaya Touré because it was something very near.
I think Frederico is right. We have at the moment around 70 foreign players in Brazil, most of them from South America. We have also these transfers from players from abroad to Brazil. Also Brazilian big players playing abroad in Flamengo. We had Felipe Luis, we have Rascaeta, all these big players. Gerson coming from AC Rome, Pedro from Fiorentina. I mean, we have now Rafinha coming from Olympiacos, probably. I was personally involved negotiating with Mino on behalf of Flamengo for Balotelli, for example. We were very close, but he was already agreed with the Italian club Brasil. So, I mean, it's not impossible, as Frederico said. It's just a matter of opportunity.
Balotelli in Rio, that would be a bad mix.
Right, more than Balotelli. I remember when Rio Ferdinand was about to retire, Pini was the agent of Rio, and Pini is like my family. And I was with Pini. I know Rio, I say, Rio, listen, you have to play in Rio. You have to play in Flamengo. I mean, can you imagine Rio in Rio? We were. This is true. It's not, this is not. This is true.
I was going to say, Ryan, though, there's an English saying, and I'm based in Newcastle, and it's like sending coal. Newcastle used to be the coal mining capital of Europe. Yeah, it's like you wouldn't send coal up to Newcastle, would you? Because they've got loads of it. And it's the same for Brazil. The talent is there's so much talent there. It's very difficult to send talented players to such a...
Yeah, but Tony, as I told you before, it's not only about football. It's about entertainment. These big names are a key. That's what I say. Who inflated who? Neymar inflated the market, or the market inflated Neymar? That's the 1 billion euros question. I mean, it's about entertainment. It's about business. Big names, it's always good. Sportainment. It's sportainment.
Okay, we're coming towards the end. So I just want to ask both of you, start with you, Marcos. What would be your message to European football agents thinking about coming to operate in Brazil? What would be the message that you would that you would give them?
Ryan, I always say there are some things in life that are very, very few special and small group of people make any sense of it, which is the quantum physics, the Bob Dylan lyrics, and football transfers. I mean, it's not that different to doing business in Brazil. I mean, we have a great market. We have a great professionals here. Clubs are managed. These top 10 clubs are managed, despite the fact they are non-for-profit, non-companies. They are well managed. I mean, partner with local agents like Frederico. It's a great market in and out. I mean, and it's Brazil. It's the biggest market in the world as per the FIFA numbers and as per the market talks. I mean, welcome to Brazil. You can count on us, and we are ready to help you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Federico, what would your message be to European agents, either looking players to bring in or to help people like yourself coming out? What's your message to going to operate in Brazil?
Yeah, for me, it's very easy to talk about European agents. They are big friends. We are always open to receive them here, to help them, if necessary, to close deals, to come here, to visit. and to make business. That is the important thing. But come here. We are open to receive and to explain how it works, because Brazil is very big and sometimes it's difficult to move. It's important to have a partnership here, like we have in most of the countries in Europe. And that's it.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Well, Tony, I've got to say that when I had that picture taken in Brazil all those years ago, I made many friends on that trip, and I definitely feel like we've made some new friends in Brazil this week as well. Really, from what I've taken away from this session in terms of the people listening, is that actually Brazil's a really practical place to go and do business. It's got a strong governing body that's got some great regulations in place that's being held, especially in the dispute resolutions and everything like that. It's a solid best practice environments working. You're working with good clubs, you know, and obviously, as we spoke about, the talent is unbelievable. What's already established and set in stone is, you know, how that walkway into Europe is already so, you know, well established. I can't think of a reason why a part of anybody's business here in Europe wouldn't include trying to formulate some sort of relationship in Brazil. You know, what have you taken away from it, Tony?
Well, honestly, it's really opened my eyes. I've never been to Brazil. I'd love to go. I think I'm going to have a 3-month sabbatical somewhere in Rio and see the infrastructure, see the clubs, meet the people. I think it's going to have to be 3 months, Ryan. I mean, I'm saying you can come with me. I know our wives might not be too impressed with that, but
mine will be perfectly happy to have me out of the house for 3 months.
But no, it's fantastic to hear, you know, the top industry professionals talking about the business and being so positive and really placing it in the right professional manner. And I think, you know, the more of this that's happening in the agency world, the better it is and the better the reputation that agents and sports lawyers will have in the football business.
Absolutely. And thank you for everybody that's tuned in today and for your contribution and questions. We've got some of the top executives at some of the top European clubs on the call today. So that's absolutely brilliant to see you on there as well. Guys, we're gonna leave it there. It's gone in a flash, but these things always do. We wish you all the very best, and Tony and I absolutely can't wait to get over at some point.
Thanks,
and I'll have to have another picture, Tony, sort of like, you know, 15, 20 years later.
Exactly. We need a new one, huh?
Just to let everyone know, the next doing business in, you've forgotten about it.
I forgot. I've got so wrapped up in my own picture, Tony. That's why.
We've been enjoying it so much. I know why you've gone off piece there, but the next doing business in is doing business in France. It's a month's time, so it's the 25th. It's a massive market, another good, you know, player development market. There's some fantastic academies in France. It's the same time. I noticed that on the FIFA rankings, number 1 FIFA ranked is Belgium, number 2 is France, number 3 is Brazil, and number 4 is England. So we're going to France next. Hopefully England around the corner as well. But thanks, guys. It's been superb. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you all. Thank you, EFAA.
Thank you very much.
Obrigado, Fred. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Valeu.
Thank you.
Tchau, tchau.